Well, we are live, ladies and gentlemen. This is WeatherBrains episode number 548. This is the magical pre-show, that wonderful time where we share boring personal stories, humorous anecdotes, say outrageous things, and eat.
And eat edamame.
So Bill's eating a pickle. I want to say my first tweet on the tweeter was, I ate a pickle. And the truth is, I hate pickles. They make me violently ill. But nobody understood Twitter back when it first signed on the air. It became a big thing at South by Southwest, I want to say in 06 or 07. And people were saying, boy, this is stupid. And, you just put stuff on there like, I ate a pickle. So my first tweet, I do believe, was, I ate a pickle. And I botched the show last week. I apologize. It was bad. Stupid operator error.
What happened?
I
was in the Rockies.
It's actually somewhat complicated the way that I have to set this thing up because I don't have an audio board. No mixer is involved in this. So I have to use some software magic, and I didn't set up the software magic properly. And you'd think I'd know how to do this because I've been doing this show for 10 years, but I just messed it up, and accordingly the producer had to rip the YouTube audio version, which is that's a long process there. That is linear. You have to just go through the whole show, and then he had to edit in the audio segments because I couldn't roll the audio segments. So. But don't worry, I'm back. I think my mind is functioning again. Let's see if you can hear. Oh, this.
Now, WeatherBrains is tracking the tracker.
Yep, loud and clear.
All right, we're good.
The science is in.
Science. All right.
Yep.
So Brian, you hung up on us. We think you have trouble on the home front. What's going on there?
I have trouble connecting with Google Plus.
Oh.
Yeah, it took 12 times to connect.
Wow.
And then it hung up on once. Besides,
it's the Wednesday night Gremlins. This is a Wednesday night special. We see Aubrey now.
Hello.
Looking good
Aubrey.
in the studio. Looks nice.
I had to, unplug and replug in the camera and then unplug it again and then switch the USB port and then hop on one foot and dust it off and do a jumping jack and then plug it back in.
Turning it off
And then it
on
worked.
again. Off and on again. Off and on again.
It's probably better that I don't have my soundboard. So yesterday and by the way, so we had this big function in Tuscaloosa, and they advertised Bill Murray, and who doesn't show up but Bill Murray?
They knew all along that I wasn't going to be there.
Well, you were on the poster. You were on the publicity thing.
Didn't have anything to do with that. They gave me some kind of credit for getting you there, like I'm some kind of fan whisperer or something. I heard you were a rock star, though.
Well, I thought, it was, what's weird, I did a pre-show like we do here. I mean, we got in there a little early, and Eli Gold was a little uncomfortable. For those that don't know, he is the radio voice of the Alabama sports programs, Alabama football and basketball. And he didn't quite know why.
Alabama!
He didn't quite know why he was there because he saw these other people from the sports world involved in decision making, and then he saw science people there, and so I interviewed Eli for about 10, 12 minutes, and that we did a pre-show.
I'm sure.
And I asked him some pretty good questions for a non-journalist, and and then we had our forum, and I thought it went very well, and we'll talk about that. So then yesterday, I spoke at a lunch function at one of the AMS summer community meetings. Mm-hmm. And I just assumed, it was probably about 80 or, 80, 90 people there. Very nice gathering. And, and I got cranky. I got wound up. And and nobody told me that Mussolini was there. I mean, so when I finished Dr. Laura Myers, does anybody want to ask a question? And this guy raised his hand, and I couldn't see. It was like in the back of the room, and he stood up, and I'm thinking, oh no, not you. So I've ticked off the head of the Weather Service. I'm going to be defrocked and kicked out of the profession.
Well, what did you say that made him upset?
Well, and I'll say this. Whenever I criticize people, the first thing I always try and do is criticize myself and our people in television. We're guilty as anybody. But, I was just getting cranky about consistency and messaging and call to action and colors. You know what turns my crank. And so I showed a bunch of Weather Service products on the screen that were not consistent and had different colors. And so, it is what it is. So if I get defrocked, I get defrocked. But other than that, I enjoyed it. That was a really nice crowd there. A lot of very good people. I was almost like going to an NWA meeting or something. That was awesome. I wish I would have carved out some time to go. I mean, I had wall-to-wall talks. Bill, you okay there?
Just cleaning up the office.
We're doing a golden flake potato chip ad here. What are you sucking
I'm eating
down
edamame. Edamame. An edamame.
Speak
Soybeans.
English, man. What is that?
At a moment.
Edamame.
Edamame? Brian, do you know
Part of that,
obviously
James.
Aubrey knows Brian, do you know what he's talking about?
I have no idea.
Are you serious?
Soybean pods. Yeah, they're boiled or steamed soybeans.
Now, I'm from Butler County, Alabama.
Well,
do
there's
you
a lot
think
of
that we
soybeans being grown there.
ate
You never pull one
soybean
out.
pods on those hot summer days down there? I mean,
Don't you go out to like a nice Japanese or Thai restaurant and?
Only barbecue joints,
Aubrey, I have no life. I get up every morning before 5. I'm busy all day, work the night shift on the TV side, get home at midnight.
Well, you get 2.5 hours sleep walking uphill both ways.
Yeah, in the snow, and the snow is very thick. No, I like going to cheap.
tonight, James.
So do they serve these at cheap Chinese restaurants?
No, I've
they
only
do
had them at the nice
fancy
ones.
spots. Yeah.
Because I love a cheap Chinese buffet. I will go to those things all day long. I could hang out at Mr. Wang's Chinese buffet all day.
Show title.
Yeah, that'd be show title.
Could hang out at Mr. Wang's all day.
Boy, I got reprimanded by the TV station traffic people. They got all mad at me. I didn't even know this. Apparently, that we're on.
Wow,
We've got like 18 TV stations here now. I don't even know what we're on, what we've got, but we've got all these main carriers and sub carriers, and apparently they have to do some traffic stuff on our show. It's all computer. These things run by computer, and I didn't tell anybody that we weren't on the air Monday night of this week, and they got all mad.
Whoops.
So, but they have to enter it in a traffic system, because if they don't know, then we they like roll commercials in the middle of the show and just weird things happen. And I think we're on 5 different .2s and .3s on this show now. I don't know why. But anyway, I know now what to do. I have to send an email to about 18 different people. And the other odd thing about our operation here, we're not centralized. A lot of people don't know that. We have 2 locations now. We have the one where we've been here for 20 years, and then we have one on Red Mountain, Brian. Have you ever been to the 68 and 21 studios up there?
No, I don't think I have, actually.
So we have to inform our master control here and their master control up there. And then there's some other central office in downtown Birmingham. I don't even know where that is. So there's like 3 different facilities here in the city. But allegedly, they're going to all consolidate into a new big place they're going to build on the mountain in like 3 years. But I'll be dead by then, so I don't know.
Well, I'll get my resignation ready because I'm not going to drive down there.
Goodness, 3 years, man, that's an eternity. We'll worry about that when it happens. But wait, for those that don't know, our studio, we're the only station in this market not on a mountain, a crest overlooking the city, and it is gorgeous there. It's a very great setting and just great views. And I worked up there for a long, long time. But this station is in the suburbs, in a suburb called Hoover, which is a very large city south of Birmingham, about 25 miles, and a lot of us live down here, so if we move back up there, it's going to add to our commute time a good bit. So, but anyway, all right. Do I need to get our guest on here, Bill? I'm sorry, I've been totally.
Yeah, I sent her a link by email, but she hasn't come on board, James. The test went really, really well today. So if you wouldn't mind, use that email, and I can hit it in the chat if you need it again.
I got it. Angela.
I'm surprised she didn't respond to my show link I sent her.
Well, she probably saw you sucking down that hot tamale or whatever you got there.
Yeah, she got hungry and went and got some.
So say that word. What is this thing one more time? I mean, Aubrey's laughing. She thinks I'm some. She thinks Brian. She thinks we are uneducated hicks.
And we are.
I
will admit to that.
Yeah. I'm a proud
edamame, edamame.
It was all the rage like 3 years ago.
Well, that explains why I don't eat it, because I've never been all the
hipsters. So is this from the same people that want you to eat kale?
Probably.
Is this related to Pokemon?
No, Elle tells me that
kale is related.
Naturally occur. It has some crazy word with about 16 letters in it that improves memory and cognition. So.
Oh, please. We have morphed into a society. We have morphed into a society where if you dare have anything but this, I bet you Bill's drinking some fancy bottled water he paid $10 for the bottle. If you don't have your fancy bottled water and your edamames or kale, then you're evil and you shouldn't be on the planet and you're destroying the earth.
It's good. It's good and it's finger food. And
that stuff tastes nasty, man. So if I walk into a room with a Diet Pepsi and a Butterfinger, everybody gets all upset. You shouldn't be eating that. It's destroying the planet and it's not healthy for mankind.
Can you drink a regular Pepsi and not a Diet Pepsi? Aspartame will kill you.
Listen, let me tell all of you something. Life kills you. I mean, that's the ultimate thing.
So here's what I say all the time to these guys that are all together, that are mad at me. So I'm 60 years old. I am an old guy. 60 years old.
And you look fantastic.
60
and I want to see
years old.
How old is he?
These jabronis that get mad at me for like having a Snickers and a soda, I want to get them out on the tennis court. And let's see how your little kale and edamame and all that mess works out in your $10 bottle of water. And here I've got my junk. And let's just see how we do. I'm just saying, let's just get it out there in the tennis court and let's see who's in the best shape, who has the best heart rate, who can do that. So, you just got to back it up with your actions. So
I lost 6 pounds in Colorado, James Spann.
Eating that junk. So you went all the way to Colorado eating okra, whatever that is.
No, we ate lots of good stuff in Colorado, believe me. There were lots of good food there.
And I start working out next month. I will be working out 3 days a week at midday. At middle of the day, there's a marvelous training place right across the street from the TV station, and I am going to go over there, and I blocked it out on the calendar. The way it works for me, if you've got to get it on the calendar, else I'm not going to have time for it. So I blocked it out 3 days a week for the next year, and I'm going to lose 20 pounds, get stronger. But I am not going to eat kale and Poopa-Moombos or whatever Brian Bill's eating there all day. It's not happening.
Hey, don't put me in that crowd. I eat the Butterfingers with you.
Yeah. So
Morgan Palmer doesn't have his invite yet, James.
This is what Brian brought us here the other day. This is what we're into here. The cheap cookies from
Publix Oreos.
And I noticed that they're open. They're open.
Hey, Brian, what did this cost you?
A penny.
1 cent. I bet you Bill, for that little green booger thing he's eating, probably paid $10 for that thing. No, it's what the elites eat. I'm just telling you, I will never
Leave
be one
while
of
you
these.
still can, Angela. Get out. Get out now. Right.
Angela will never come back. I'm sorry. We're being very
Morgan
cranky.
wants to know why you're snubbing him, James.
Yeah, did you invite Morgan?
And Angela just hung up on us.
You took me seriously. I know. We have no guests.
Well, this show is getting off to a rousing start.
Yeah, we have taken this right down the tubes here at the beginning here.
I wait till the end.
Welcome to those that are watching on the television side. And let me drop
if you're smart, you'll go watch something else.
Yeah.
You mean we're the only ABC channel in Birmingham that doesn't have the Republican National Convention on it?
I am apolitical. I don't even get into that. The only thing I see on my monitors up here, I've got on our signal, it is not political, and on the Weather Channel, it's us. So. Right, I've got this social media thing going, and let's roll it.
You can't see or hear Angela. See her avatar.
I'm here.
There you go. Good. We can hear you. That's
I
all
know, and it says my camera's on, but I don't see anything.
As long as we can hear you, that's the most important part.
Guys, I want you to be able to see me.
Well, that's true. I mean, most people listen to the show. It's kind of hard to gauge, but looking at the numbers, I think about 75% listen and 25% watch, and some do both. But no, we see a picture of you. Looks like you're. Oh, there you go. There you go.
Yay.
Aubrey,
that means explain. 3 listen and 1 watch.
Aubrey is an expert on how to unplug and plug in and all that stuff.
Do a dance, hop on 1 foot.
Yeah, and hold your right arm at a 32-degree angle. All right, we're 5 minutes late. We've not been 5 minutes late in a long time.
It's my fault.
No. It is my fault. Trust me. I have taken this down a bad rat hole. And here we go in 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Hey, this is WeatherBrains, episode number 548 for the 20th of July, 2016. Show that's all about weather. Seems like everybody's doing a weather podcast. For a long, long time, we'd always say this is the greatest weather podcast in the universe because there are no other weather podcasts. I think there's about 1 million of them now. But that's fine. We welcome everybody. Join the crowd. Where have you been? But this is WeatherBrains. We are doing this on a Wednesday night instead of a Monday night, and let's get some logistical things out of the way here first. Next week we're going to do 2 shows, and again, this is going to be involving some vacation. But next week will be on Monday night as usual, and we have a Tuesday night special next week, and that is the show that would be scheduled for August 1st. And then after that, I'm here through Christmas. So that's the deal. And also, while we're talking logistics, let me apologize for last week. I pride myself on the audio quality and the production values here, and I just goofed up. I mean, I just fouled up. It's a little complicated doing the show. We don't have an audio mixer. It's all done in software, so you have to have some virtual routing going on, and you have to have a little magic called Audio Hijack Pro, and I didn't have the right buttons pressed. And anyway, the producer had to pull the backup audio off the YouTube channel. So, for most people, I don't think they notice, but some will. So, but tonight we are on schedule. All the things are working, and in fact, let me try the foghorn and see if that works. There you go, Brian. It works. Brian Peters is the internationally beloved meteorologist who proved it this week.
I haven't proven it yet.
Well, no, you were contacted by an international organization wanting to. They want you to do a documentary with them. So there you go.
Yes, and then I found out that they also contacted you. You didn't tell me that.
Well, but they don't love me. They love you. So
right. Yeah.
So
they've already watched all your video.
So Brian Peters has been camped out at a rock and roll fest this past weekend.
Yeah, while you were talking about support to outdoor events, I was providing support to an outdoor event.
There you go. Yeah, Brian was in one of the little trailers with the organizers. You guys weren't smoking those funny cigarettes in there, were you?
I didn't smoke any funny cigarettes. No.
Good. I could just see Brian back there. Hey, man, it's gonna rain at 5 o'clock. Yeah. No, that's a great event.
Everybody high.
Yeah. No, that's a great event. It's called Slossfest, and you had one. And let me just say this, Brian, that is a no-win. That is a no-win job. You're dealing with air mass thunderstorms.
Yeah, I'll explain to everybody the hard thing on Sunday was we had probably a dozen showers. Only one out of a dozen produced any lightning, and it was the one that developed overhead.
And so it goes.
And so it goes, yes.
Yeah, goodness.
So we turned the page to Chapter 2 and hope they hire me back next year.
Now, they were bragging on you, though, at this thing, Brian. I did an event about outdoor lightning safety at these big venues and severe weather safety, and they were bragging on you. Gene Hallman.
Yes, I've worked with Gene Hallman on a number of outdoor events, and I think I did a better job for him than I did the Sloss Fest, I'm afraid.
But no, it was the SEC baseball thing because, of course, this year nothing happened. But what happened at the SEC baseball tournament last year, by chance, I was in town, and by chance I couldn't play tennis because we had some storms, and I finished my Sunday morning stuff I do at a church, and I went out there and camped out for like 7 hours and hung out with them. But they did not have a meteorologist on site. And they fixed that by getting the man that looks like Colonel Sanders in there. So we've got Aubrey Urbanowitz, who, God bless you, you put up with us 7th grade humor guys. So Aubrey, how are you tonight?
I'm good. I'm very well tonight. How are you guys?
We're good. What's happening in the Shenandoah Valley?
Well, you sent us your heat, so there's that.
Welcome to summer.
Or you're sending us your heat.
Yeah, I think everybody's going to be dealing with heat. In fact, we probably ought to do our public service announcement. We'll do that later in the show.
I actually just made a heat tips graphic for the show.
Oh, well, I can't wait to hear what these heat tips are, Aubrey. So when you give out heat tips on the air, what do you say?
No, actually what I did was I made a bar graph last night of our forecast over the next 6 days, and I did not put in heat tips. I put in facts that people might not know. So instead of the white noise of drink lots of water, find air conditioning, stay hydrated, wear loose clothing, I put how hot the asphalt can get on a 90-degree day and how quickly your car can heat up to over 110 degrees, and that heat is the #1 weather killer. So hopefully someone will say, oh, I didn't know that, instead of blah, blah, blah.
There you go. And again, my position on it, and of course everybody here knows, it's silly when you tell people to go into an air-conditioned room. Do you think so?
It's like telling people to wear a coat when it's cold, or my favorite, bundle up.
Yeah, bundle up, friends. It sounds like Brick Tamlin from 1978, and I don't believe in treating our viewers like they're ignoramuses or idiots or imbeciles. I think they really know that you need to get out of the sun during the hottest part of the day if you want to stay cool, you know. But to me, the issues is people that do have to work outside that can't go in heat stroke with them. And then where I am, and I would assume it's this way in most places, we have a lot of lower income families that don't have an air conditioner, and a lot of elderly people on fixed incomes that don't have an air conditioner. And they're afraid of people breaking in, and they don't open windows, and they don't have a way of getting any airflow. And during the remarkable summer of 1980, we had incredible loss of life within that people group. And I think a lot about them. And, of course, the other issue is people that leave, infants in car seats. And that's a problem even when it's not that hot. It's just a problem in pets and all that. So there are some issues, of course, but I am not going to get caught in this idiotic thing where you get that look on your face like it's a heat emergency, let's go to the weather center for some urgent heat tips. And then the blow-dried boob in there tells you to go drink some water and go into an air-conditioned room. No kidding. So anyway. I'm really cranky tonight. I
You are.
don't know what's wrong. Bill, I'm
Keep going.
sorry.
Did you hear about the experiment we did down in Alabaster last week?
I saw
fireman-
bits and pieces.
the fireman
I
in
saw
the-
some
in the-
bits and pieces. What's going on?
He made it 25
I'm not
minutes.
quite sure what that is. So
Yeah, the
what
fire-
happened now?
They set a fireman up and they monitored his vital signs and they put him in a car and he made it 25 minutes before his vitals got to dangerous proportions. His temperature was over 102. His internal temperature was over 102 in 25 minutes.
Wow.
And before I introduce Bill, we got Morgan Palmer from Seattle. So Morgan, how
He
cool
never
is
has
it?
heat up there.
Well, we don't have the same sort of heat that you guys have down there generally, although we just hit our 15th straight day today. No, 13th straight, pardon me. Lost count at 70 or above. So we actually keep count.
wow.
Keep count on the air.
Wow.
But we already had plenty of 80-plus degree days, and it looks like finally this troughiness here in the Northwest is going to break down and will at least get a little more ridging into next week. Now, up here, a lot of buildings don't have air conditioning. Where I live, I don't have central air, so I have to pull out a portable air conditioning system and run the hose out my balcony window when it starts to get a little warm, because it's not so much. Yes, we rarely have a 90-plus degree day. We'll have a few of them each year, and the humidity is never a problem. But it's when we're in the 80s day after day, and the heat does begin to build, especially at night, if you can't cool off and there's not much of an airflow. So fans and air conditioners, we often send our reporters out, and they fly off the shelves. But we haven't gotten to where we were last year at this time, which we were well on our way to the hottest summer on record.
Hey, Morgan, would you repeat that number again? How many days of 70 and over?
Consecutive days. We're at day 13 straight of 70 or above.
Okay, for 2016 in Birmingham, we've already had 120.
Wow.
Yeah, let's get out a little violin and play it here.
I'd have to pull it up. I think we're probably in the 20s, 25 day range at 70 or above, and we've also had a string of 80-plus days. But that's the Northwest for you. The tourists love it.
All right,
Yes.
Bill Murray, bring in our guests. Let's roll. Let's get to the good content here.
Yeah, James. Tonight's guest weather brain is the lead forecaster for the Capital Weather Gang, Angela Fritz. Welcome to the show.
Thanks for having me, guys.
Well, we're so glad you're with us tonight. Yeah, I just spent 10 days in Colorado, and there was no air conditioning, so I, on the plane yesterday, turned the nest down to like 70 degrees so I could walk in and go, So I know about that no air conditioning, Morgan Palmer. So
Yeah, it's tough. I just got back from 4 days in Texas, so yeah, I get my heat fix.
Yeah. So, but anyway, it's nice to be back in the 73 to 70 degree dew points. But talk about that for a minute, Angela. Y'all had an article about corn sweat on the Capital Weather Game.
Oh gosh, yeah, corn sweat.
last week.
Yeah, so it was Monday, I think. No, it's Sunday night or Monday. My old boss, actually, at CNN, Dave Hennon, shout out Dave Hennon, co-authored a story, just like a U.S. heat update. It's going to get real hot. It's going to get real humid. Heat indices maybe up to 110. And he, they in trying to explain this, they brought up evapotranspiration, but didn't want to say evapotranspiration, and so they said corn sweat. And so, some CNN.com editor said, dangerous heat wave coming. Could corn sweat be to blame? And so I walked in on Monday, and all of our Twitter followers were like, what is corn sweat? Is corn sweat really causing our heat wave? And I was like, oh, geez. So I did a little thing on corn sweat and what that actually was. And actually, I talked to a guy who out in Iowa, of course, who knows a lot about corn and evapotranspiration. And he said that, honestly, this week, maybe the transpiration would accumulate to 1 or 2 degrees of the heat index. So it's marginal at best. So
But it's a great
the
cause.
corn is not the cause.
Blame it on the corn.
Mm-hmm.
So Angela, y'all had some bad storms last night, I saw.
Yes. We had some golf ball size hail, damaging winds. I mean, just on my walk from my metro station to work, a couple of trees down in downtown DC, trees down at the White House. So quite a few severe wind gust reports, and of course the problem with all of this was that nobody really forecasted it. It wasn't in our forecast. Yeah, it wasn't in our forecast. It wasn't in the Weather Service forecast, although to their credit they did mention the possibility in the discussion, but I think we were all looking at the dew points, we were seeing the downward trend, we saw a very weak shortwave coming through, and we thought, it's probably not going to make it here in time to capitalize on those dews. And I mean, these all started at 8 or 9 o'clock, and so it was after sunset, kind of took us by surprise. And so that's just the way it goes out here sometimes. This part of the country, severe can be really tough.
Yeah, I know that some of your followers said that it was worse than the derecho of 2012, and I'm sure in the larger sense that's not really true. But
right. I think for those people, it might have been worse than the derecho. Because we had a few people with leaky roofs and a bunch of trees down in their yard and fairly big hail. But in terms of how widespread the derecho was, obviously this was nothing in comparison. This really just affected the Beltway. Actually, the Beltway was the hardest hit last night, which never happens. I mean, we talk about the radar hole over DC. It always seems like storms just kind of split right over the district, for better or worse, depending on your opinion. But that's not what happened last night. So we finally got kicked.
Well, like James always says, if the tornado hits your house, then it is the worst tornado.
Yes.
Of history for sure. So talk for a minute about how you got into weather, Angela, and how you got to the position you're in now.
Oh, it's kind of a long story. I mean, I always knew I wanted to be a meteorologist, and I'm sure the rest of you probably felt the same way. We're special in that way. And Valparaiso University was my undergrad up in Northwest Indiana. Great school, private, small liberal arts college, but they had a really great meteorology department. And then trekked down to Atlanta, Hotlanta, and kind of in span territory down there, and did my master's in atmospheric science at Georgia Tech. Worked at CNN for 2 years. That was exciting. Made me realize I really liked communication, weather communication. And then took a very large hop over to San Francisco and was at Weather Underground with Jeff Masters for 3 years. One of those years was also with the Weather Channel because, there was the merger that happened in 2012. And then the Capital Weather Gang job opened up, and I said, well, I really should apply to this. Got into the final round there, came out for the interview and got the job, and I said, well, I guess I'm moving across the country again. So here I am.
Well, you've covered both coasts.
Yes.
For sure. So talk about what Jeff Bezos has done with the Post and this experiment that are sort of living in.
Yeah, I think that people are still kind of questioning, why did Jeff Bezos buy the Washington Post? What's his end game here? And to be honest, we don't really know. We don't know exactly why Jeff bought the Post. We hope that it's because he thinks it's a good investment. But right after he bought in the end of 2013, he just shoveled a ton of money back into hiring. And it's actually one of the reasons that I was hired, that I was able to be hired, was this huge influx of Bezos money, you could say. 5 months later, I came on, and things have just been really progressing ever since then. We are a traditional newspaper company, but we are rapidly evolving into what I would call a media technology company, where we're kind of a little farm, a little warehouse for digital media products that then other outlets can use. And so we test them on ourselves, and we're the guinea pigs, and then we say, okay, this is a great product, now we can offer it to other companies and other organizations. And so I think that that's kind of the idea that Jeff has in mind, not just being the media, but also being the company that serves the media as well.
So can you share any success stories from that have made it out into the wild?
I don't know what's made it out into the wild, but we do have a couple of internal success stories, and it's very much on a workflow basis. You know, when you have 1,000 people in your newsroom, how do you plan stories? How do you decide who's going to do what and when, and what parts of the coverage, you know, for big stories like the convention, how to dole out what parts of the coverage. And so our team has developed some pretty great products around that, around scheduling, just so that everyone has kind of a central system to see what everyone else is doing, to make sure that you're not overlapping with people, that you're not duplicating work. Because you can imagine, you know, with hundreds and hundreds of people on your national news team, there could be a lot of overlap, and there could just be a lot of wasted time. And so we have a lot of good products coming out in that. We also have some great products coming out with graphing tools, which is great for us because we love, you know, in the weather world, we love, you know, visualization of data. And so we like to see that continue. And so things like that. So ways to make news more engaging, and in particular online, because, I mean, that's where everything is going. So it's where everything already is. So we're focused completely online, although we still have the paper, but the innovating is online.
So are there any metrics that say that these experiments are working, at least for the paper itself or for your audience, your followers?
Not that I've seen. For our followers, I mean, the Washington Post metrics have done nothing but not. You know, I mean, we've blown away the New York Times at this point in terms of readership online, which is something that, you know, Posties love. that's what we love to say. And part of that is due to some of these tools that have made our storytelling more engaging. In terms of whether or not these tools are, you know, successful at other organizations, you know, I'm not sure.
So, Angela, when we did the test earlier today, you were, you know, the newsroom was behind you, and I would sort of thought, you know, is that where all the president's men, you know, were Dustin Hoffman, and, you know, they were doing their thing back in the 70s during Watergate. So how is your workflow a part of that larger newsroom? Are you independent as the Capital Weather Gang, or are you integrated with what everyone else is doing? Sinclair.
A little bit of both. It ebbs and flows. So we are on the local team because technically we are a local weather outlet, but we also cover national. And so when there's a big local story going on, say for instance, you know, the blizzard in January, we will work with everyone in the newsroom to make sure that we're covering exactly what we need to be covering. But at the same, then, you know, then besides that, we're free to do whatever we want, basically. I mean, they've really given us a lot of leeway in order to cover the weather exactly how we want. And they also give us a lot of leeway to say the things that we want too, especially when it comes to weather. There's no other actual scientists at the Post. And just like everyone else, you know, the meteorologists are the scientists in the room, and so they kind of come to us for information across the board in terms of environment and other kinds of science. But also they recognize that we're not technically journalists, and so we fall into this interesting category where we're half journalists and half meteorologists, and we need to be able to do both fluidly.
Yeah, and that's how it seems to me, Angela. When I first heard about the Capital Weather Gang some years ago, I thought, well, you know, this is primarily a DC-centric blog, when it's something now that I think so many people read every single day. As far as the staffing goes and the workflow, do you have just a big room of people and you're all kind of working in the hive and assignments get doled out? Or if someone's working on a longer form piece, do you just have the day to work on that? What is your workflow like, and how many folks are involved, and how many also do you have to churn out?
Yeah. So these are all great questions. And actually, you might be surprised to know that there are only 2 of us that are there all the time, only 2 full-time employees, and that's me and Jason Samanow. everyone else that contributes to the Capital Weather Gang does it from the comfort of their home or the comfort of their office, and they do it on their own time. And they all have other jobs, which I think is what makes this organization so special, is that, you know, the people that are involved really do care about weather, and they really do care about providing the best information that they can, and they love the Capital Weather Gang. They're spending their free time doing it. And so in terms of assigning, some assignments do happen. You know, so last night as these storms are rolling through, we were talking with Ian Livingston and Jeff Halverson. We're kind of in these big email threads, and we're saying, okay, well, we need to do an explainer. Why did this happen? You know, why did we get these storms and we didn't know they were coming? So Jeff said, okay, I'll take the lead on that. And then Kevin Ambrose, our photographer, you know, he was out walking his dog at 10 o'clock, you know, he lives an hour west of the city, and jumped in his car and drove into DC at 10 o'clock so he could get pictures of the lightning, so that we could have something on what an amazing lightning show it was last night. You know, Ian Livingston's talking about, you know, the forecast challenges and contributing that way. I'm doing a lot of editing, and so when there are things going on like that, there is a lot of kind of doling out of work. When there's nothing going on, which we've had in the past couple of weeks, you know, we've had kind of a lull in the weather. In that case, this is when we open up time for our freelancers to just pitch whatever idea they feel might be interesting. You know, we run things on space weather. You know, every once in a while, Jeff Halverson will, you know, he'll say, I'm going to write something on, you know, derecho seasonality, things like that. And Ian will write something on, we just did something on 90-degree day climatology in DC, things like that. And so it kind of ebbs and flows in that way. And so, yeah, I think that pretty much answers your question. But otherwise, you know, it's just me and Jason, and everything else is done remotely, which is just the marvel of the internet, right?
What's your favorite? No, go ahead, James.
I was going to say, I struggle with this. I don't know anything about journalism. And I've been working in these newsrooms all my life, but I don't know anything about it. I've never taken a class. And now what's happening in my world with social media, people send me a picture of a bad car wreck, or they send me a picture of something involving news or nothing related to weather, and I don't really know what to do with it. I mean, what's your advice on learning journalism, just the basics, because I don't have a clue.
Yeah, I mean, I would say, you know, for us, and I know it is, I have worked, I mean, I've worked at CNN, I've not worked at a local, but it is a little bit different in TV. But for us, we try and stick to the weather, and then we also get tips across the newsroom too. So if there is a bad car accident, you know, we're going to go to the transportation team and say, hey guys, a lot of times we'll get a lot of airport reports. You know, they'll say, oh, Reagan National has a ground stop, but it's sunny outside. What's going on? And so that way we can hand that over to transportation and say, hey, what's going on? Because a lot of the transportation things, and we do sit right next to transportation for that reason, but a lot of the transpo things overlap with us just because people think weather and transportation kind of together. And so we do get a lot of that coming in. But in terms of learning journalism, I mean, it has been kind of a crash course for me because, I mean, I didn't learn journalism. I'm not a journalist, but working at the Post, you have to write to that standard. And so when I'm covering news, I need to make sure that really all of my I's are dotted and all of my T's are crossed, because it's not going to fly here. You know, we're not just writing a blog. We're writing a blog on WashingtonPost.com, which means it needs to live up to the news standards of the Washington Post. So sometimes we can be a little bit behind. You know, we're not going to be the first to something because we really do need to verify what's going on, and make sure that all of our facts are checked. So.
What are your favorite topics? Is there a certain article that you've written, certain blog that you've had that when you get done with it, it's like, okay, that was pretty awesome? I occasionally have those, rarely anymore, but
I know, and
occasionally.
it really is such a good feeling, right? There are some things that you come in the morning and you don't know what you're going to write about, and you're kind of like, oh, what kind of day is this going to be? And then something comes across your desk and you're like, oh, this could be good, and you're interested in it at least, and so you write up something fun and passionate, and you send it out, and it ends up being the most read thing on the post that day. There are days like that. If you guys remember, in October last year, the desert in Chile had all of those pink wildflowers all over it, and so there were some wire photographers down there that got a few photos, so I wrote the story about how it was El Nino, right? It's the rain because of El Nino, and I said, the Attica Desert, the driest place in the world, is covered in pink flowers right now, and people that kind of stuff really gets to people, and then they end up learning about El Nino, and they end up learning about what the driest place in the world is, and that ends up being like the most read thing all week. So there are days like that for sure where I put something out and I don't necessarily even expect it to do that well, and all of a sudden it's taking off. And then there are other things. I really enjoy writing to the weather community, and not just to the reader or the layperson viewer. I really like to start conversations about maybe tricky subjects. I like to start conversations about things that we could be doing better, things that I think that we're doing good, stuff like that. So, and there have been quite a few of those stories this year. And I also really enjoy making sure that we are covering women in meteorology the way that we should be. And that's a passion of mine. A lot of women, especially in TV weather, have it really tough. And so when forces make it extra tough for them, I get a little ticked. and so I will take pen to paper in that case. So.
Yeah, I wish Aubrey had been here for that portion. We'll have to circle back around to that when she's back in a moment, because I think she can speak to that same.
Yeah, she can speak better to it than I can. I mean, she is on TV.
Let's put a bookmark in that and come back to that in just a minute. But, some of your posts do sort of become lightning rods to a certain degree for controversy, and then others don't, Angela. One that comes to mind recently was when the SPC went big time on hyping an event that was coming up, and it turned out to be a forecast bust, and you wrote about that. Talk about that for a minute.
Yeah, I mean, it was. I don't know if I'd actually call it a bust. I think that in the story I called it a quote, a bust, because it turned out that it was a moderate risk day. And I think that in terms of severe, it verified very well. What didn't necessarily verify well was the potentially dangerous situation tornado watches that were issued. And I don't think that this was a problem with SPC. I think that this was a problem with the weather communication enterprise in general. We saw a big event coming. It was the first moderate of the season. Yes, some local offices and even the main Storm Prediction Center office were talking about, things as if they were pretty certain that we were going to have a big tornado outbreak. And then it didn't happen. And of course, schools in Oklahoma closed their doors. Kids stayed home, parents had to stay home from work, things like that. And so it was too bad. And I know that we're going to have misses, but I feel like maybe the hype train was way, way off the tracks that day. And hopefully we'll do better. Actually, Rick Smith and I have a paper hopefully coming out in January for the AMS conference on that one.
Yeah. Rick was sorry that he couldn't be here tonight, Angela, because he's sunning on the beautiful beaches of Alabama
Oh, I feel bad for
this
him.
week on vacation. So he was really sorry that he couldn't be here. But some other stories that have been interesting recently, that I've seen come through, involved, these bills that come through Congress all the time. Talk about those that, want to limit the Weather Service.
Yeah, and it goes both ways. I do think we need a weather bill passed. I think that it's going to do nothing but good things for the weather enterprise and for NOAA to have a weather bill passed. The trick is to get that right, to get that weather bill right. And so, for instance, a few weeks ago, Representative Jim Bridenstine from the Oklahoma First put forward a space bill that happened to have in it a section on NOAA and the National Weather Service that, and I'm paraphrasing here, said, basically it was, we had a conversation with him, and it was meant to be specifically related to satellites, but that's not what ended up in the bill. And what ended up in the bill was basically anything, if NOAA is about to do something new, if it's something that the private weather industry could do, NOAA would not be allowed to do it. They would have to cede that to the private weather industry. And so you can imagine any kind of improved warnings, any kind of improvements from here on out would not be something NOAA could do, because companies like AccuWeather would say, well, we can do that. And so that bill, maybe, Congressman Bridenstine said that he didn't intend it to be read that way, but the problem is he also intended this bill to be stripped apart, and I know it gets very complicated. I'm learning as I go, but they put bills forward for the sole intent of kind of being picked apart and having like the best ideas rise to the surface. And so maybe you take a section from this bill and a section from this bill and you throw it all together, and all of a sudden you've got something that everyone can vote on and agree on. The problem is, what if this NOAA section, what if this National Weather Service section gets pulled out on its own, without being related to satellites or anything, and all of a sudden the National Weather Service can't issue warnings anymore because that's something the private industry can do. So we just have to make sure that whatever bills we're putting forward make sense. I do think that there are a number of ways where the private weather industry is going to do so much better than the National Weather Service. They're more agile, they're more flexible, they're more innovative. We should be doing more R&D on the private side and bringing that into the public side. And I think that would do nothing but improve the National Weather Service. But at the same time, let's say a company comes up and says, we're going to do warnings, and we're going to run the forecast model, and we're going to own the satellites. What happens if that company decides that it's no longer profitable to do so? What if that company gets bought out by someone who decides that it's no longer something that they're interested in doing? The problem is you can't really tell the private sector what to do. The government, if they want to drop something, they can, and National Weather Service is there to protect lives and property, and so we have to make sure that they can do that to the best of their ability.
So another controversial thing that came up recently was, and this year was the big snowstorm at National, and you went after the observers out there because they lost the snowboard. That has a bit of a comical sound to us, but
it does, yeah.
I'm sure your audience took it very seriously.
They did take it very seriously. And it is, don't get me wrong, I understand that in the grand scheme of things this is trivial, but at the same time we have standards because we want to get things right, and so when those things are not met, it kind of fries me. So the blizzard's rolling through. We're calling National every once in a while, the weather observers there, and they're great. They take our phone calls, which is wonderful. And we're getting weather reports from them, and we're saying, okay, so how much has fallen since, 1 p.m. or whatever, and they're giving us updates. at some point that night, on Saturday night, the weather observer says, I don't know, it's gone down since the last time. And we said, okay, well, are you using a snowboard? And he said, no, I lost the snowboard. We said, okay, so how are you measuring snow? And he said, well, I'm going out and I'm sticking my yardstick in, 6 or 7 different places, and I'm taking an average, which is great for snow depth. But what ended up happening was National was reporting snow, and the snow depth was going down. And so, do we actually know how much snow fell at National? By our 6-hourly swiping standard, no, we don't. And so the National, we wrote a story on this, saying that the total 17.8 inches is questionable, and the Weather Service picked up the ball and said, okay, we're going to look into this. And they looked into how snow is measured, not only at DCA, but at every station from here to Long Island. And then came back and said, well, it looks like National did everything they could have done, so we're sticking with 17.8. And of course, everyone was like, the problem is they got 22 inches at the White House, and so 17.8 just seemed a little low. And so people were a little bit upset about that. But good things happened. We learned that a few observing stations between here and New York were not doing things right, and that they were not doing things right for a very long time. Swiping every 1 hour, for instance, which is going to lead to inflated snow totals. And so these things got fixed because of that, which at the very least, it's not what I set out to do, but things got fixed nonetheless.
You're making things happen in the weather enterprise. That's really good, Angela. Now, sometimes when you don't say something, that's as much of a statement. We know that Washington D.C. has the Capital Weather Gang. Washington State has Dr. Cliff Mass, and he's frequently is constantly basically complaining about the Weather Service's lack of plan for modeling. Talk about that for a second. What's your opinion on that?
Yeah, and I'd be interested to hear from you guys what you think about all this. But the background on this is that NOAA is choosing what the new GFS, what the new NOAA model is going to be. And so there's 2 things that they're working on right now, the dynamical core, which is how the model is run, and then the physics that are run on that model. And so they're happening in parallel. The dynamic core team, the selection team, was looking at they were looking at a bunch of different models, but it really came down to 2. It came down to a core that was designed by GFDL, which is NOAA, and then a core that was designed by teams at NCAR. Cliff felt very strongly that the NCAR model, or the NCAR dynamic core, was the one to go with. But the selection team went with the other model out of GFDL for a variety of reasons, and so Cliff has written some very passionate blog posts about this, and about how NOAA's wasting their time and they're not choosing the best model. And so I spoke with Ricky Rude, University of Michigan. He is on the selection committee, and I said, Ricky, what's going on? How did you make this decision? And looking at the way they did this, quite frankly, the NCAR model did not perform in a couple of very important tests. It couldn't resolve the eye of a hurricane, for example, and that's a problem. We don't necessarily know why that happened, but that team decided not to try and figure out why. They just said, okay, we're done. The other problem is that the NCAR model was prohibitively expensive, and unfortunately that is an issue. The cost was way too high, and so this is why they have chosen the other model. There was a window for me to write about this controversy, and I chose not to, just because I felt like it was a little bit of a tempest in a teapot, and I don't I don't really think that the NOAA team made a bad decision there. I think that they made the decision that they had to make, and all of the verification is there. And now Cliff knows more of the nitty-gritty than I do, but from what I saw, it was something that I chose not to cover. So, and then they're going to continue moving on. They need to choose the physics, and then they're going to run the physics on the dynamic core. So hopefully soon we'll be getting a new GFS.
So one thing we have to ask you before you get initiated into the WeatherBrains Club, Angela, and not that you might not really want to be a part of the WeatherBrains Club, but how do you feel about naming storms?
Oh, God. Ugh.
You get one pass, Angela.
No, I'm
Since
not.
Kevin's here.
No, you get no passes on this show. We
no,
want to know.
No, we're not.
I thought you were gone. I saw your avatar. I thought you were gone, Span. So.
We're not passing on this one. I always say exactly what I think about naming storms. I don't think every winter storm should be named. I was actually at Weather Underground and Weather Channel when they started naming winter storms, and we, not gonna lie, we fought it. The Weather Underground people fought it real hard, but they won. Marketing wins, and so I don't think every storm should be named. I think that if a storm is big enough, it will a name will bubble up on its own. There will be a way to remember it. At the Capital Weather Gang for storms in DC, we leave it to the people. We let the people choose what they think the name should be. Yes.
I'm just saying, this is maybe one reason you don't want to name.
This is a good reason.
I'm just saying.
This is a good reason. Okay. Yes. Oh boy, that's probably the poster child reason.
No. Let's Angela finish. I didn't mean to interrupt you. Go ahead.
No, it's okay. We allow our readers to name storms because it draws attention to it. It gets people interested in it. It gets people paying attention, and all of those things are good things. We don't do it on every storm. We didn't do it on a single storm, not this season, but the last season. And so when things like the blizzard of 2016 come about, you know that they're going to be memorable. You know that those things are going to have a name anyways. They're going to stick in the memories of people by some name. We don't need to be naming things Winter Storm Janice.
So Angela, one of our listeners, Rob Heron, has really taken the Weather Service in Illinois to task about these changes in the colors that they've made, and this is one of James's favorite subjects and something that we're looking forward to talking to you about tonight. So I'll start and I'll ask Brian first. Brian, how do you weigh in on what the Weather Service is doing there and Eli Jack's hazard simplification program?
Oh, just say it, Brian. They won't stop your checks from coming in. Just go ahead.
I think I'm probably the only one in this panel who doesn't think that there's a problem.
No. I'm with you, Brian. So say what you're saying.
These individual maps that are showing the polygon and they're showing them in red, whether it's tornado, severe thunderstorm, flash flood, I don't find a problem with that. It's showing the warning area. Now, when you're showing it in different, you're showing different warnings and not sticking to a color scheme, I think we should be sticking to a color scheme for those.
Well, see, I don't know. I kind of disagree with that.
That's fine.
I look at it as people want to know how bad it's going to get, and if it's a red warning, so to speak, maybe it's red warning because of the potential for hail and flash flooding, and you can talk about those things, but those people need to know that it's a red weather situation, and then that makes them pay attention. And you guys know UK Met Office, the Euro, people are doing this and it's working well from a communication standpoint. And I think that we need to drop the what I call watch warning potpourri, which is just, I mean, there are 122 colors, and I joke about that because there are 122 National Weather Service forecast offices, so I just assume that they all got to pick their own color, and then they got to, they got to throw it on the map. There's 122 of them, and because everything gets its own color, and the end user has no idea what's going on. I interact with these people every day. They just want to know how bad it's going to be. So.
And here's my point. So, and I spoke at an AMS function yesterday, and I didn't know that Mussolini was in the room. I probably made him mad. I'm probably going to be defrocked, but I said the same thing I say a lot. I said we sit around these meetings at these really nice hotels with this really nice food, and we talk about the same thing every time, and nothing really ever happens, or when things do happen, we're trying to make us happy. Who cares? It doesn't matter what I think. It doesn't matter what anybody on this show thinks. It matters what the end user thinks. So I said to these guys yesterday, I said, we all ought to get up out of this room and drive 20 miles down the road to Gordo, Alabama, and go in the Dollar General. And I bet you nobody in this room has ever been in a Dollar General.
Oh,
and
yes,
you might
I
find
have.
that store offensive. You might find those people offensive. But that's the end user. And all that matters is what they think and how they are served and what works for them and what saves their life. And I was like really cranky, but it's true. We just sit around here and think about this stuff that makes us happy, and we think it's cool and we think it's right. It doesn't matter. And we've got to go out in the real world. And if you go out in the real world, the Walmarts and the Targets and the bowling alleys and the gas stations where people really are, you're going to find answers to these questions. You don't need a $5 million research project or all this malarkey here. Just go talk with people, and it really will open your eyes to what's right and to what's wrong. And I think the lack of consistency in messaging when it comes to life-threatening weather is a big problem. And I do think the lack of standardization is a problem. And understand, in the TV business, we're all going to say it differently, but if our messages are different, if you go from Channel 4 to Channel 8 to Channel 11, everybody's saying something different. Or this guy's Twitter account or this guy's blog, and they're all telling you to either dig a hole or go to the first floor or get in your car and drive, and you got one map that's red and one that's pink and one that's maroon. This is insane. We can do better than this. And I understand I'm probably in this utopia world where you think you can make it all consistent. Maybe not, but we've got to try. We've got to do better. Don't you guys think?
Yes.
There.
Ben, I bet you didn't know how much you have in common with the West Coast, because everything that you just said, go out there and figure out what the end user wants, is exactly what they're doing in Silicon Valley, and that's exactly why they're beating the government in every single thing that they do. We need to take a note from them and stop. Who cares what meteorologists think? These products are not for us, you know. But the Weather Service and Eli Jack's team, they're still polling meteorologists on how we should be doing these things, and I don't think there's any need for that.
We are anomalous. We're not. We're just strange people. Everybody in the weather enterprise, we're just odd. We're not Joe Q public, and it doesn't. I agree. It totally doesn't matter what we think, and I don't understand why we're so hung up on this. And the other problem I see within the weather enterprise, we're like narcissists. We can't do anything wrong. Everything we do is right. And if the public doesn't like it, well, they're wrong because we are right. Well, I don't know why the weather community attracts these narcissists. And some of them get in charge in these big organizations. And we've got to change our whole way of thinking. And, you know, maybe I probably PO'd somebody yesterday at this thing, but maybe it got somebody just thinking about it at least. And just maybe one of those people drove down to the Dollar General.
I think, James, in the broadcast community, you know, we have generally 4 TV stations in a given market. Some have fewer, some have more. And I think, and I know this has happened a lot of places, I think it might have happened down there, where everybody just needs to get together. Everybody needs to put their, you know, like the Anchorman fight scene, and everyone just needs to forget about all that, come together and say, okay, guys and gals, let's figure out what colors we're going to use on the air, and try to come to some sort of a consensus. I think red tornado warning, yellow severe thunderstorm warning, green flash flood warning, because that's how I grew up. That's what I saw when I was growing up. But I think it needs to be definitely standardized within a certain market, because all of your end users generally in a given market are going to be watching the same outlets. Now, the Weather Service, I think they certainly need to standardize it, but at a local level, we none of us can change that, but we can change what happens at a local level.
Yeah, we did that here after I talked in Oklahoma last year. I said, I'm a hypocrite. I am an absolute hypocrite if I don't do something. So I call all the chief meteorologists in this market together at the Weather Service, and we had a closed-door session. It's like first grade. Hello, friends. Let's use the same crayons. And so we agreed to use the same colors and the basic call to action. It was a very productive meeting. And what's so sad, Morgan, you got some markets in this country where you can't even get the chief meteorologist together. And then you might get them together if you're lucky, but they're not going to meet with the Weather Service because they all hate each other and they won't talk with each other. And we've got to learn to put these egos aside. Why would anybody have an ego that does this job? Goodness, this is nothing special. This is a servant's job. So back to Angela, though, the question is, do you coordinate in your market? And I understand you're really more national, I guess, because your products are tremendous, but yet then again, you do serve your local market with weather. Do you make any kind of coordination effort with the local television community and the Weather Service community there in Washington?
Yeah, and actually, I am very proud of our DMA, because we work very closely with our National Weather Service. We are on good terms with them. We go out and see them twice a year. All of the media gets together to go out twice a year and talk about severe weather, in particular winter weather. And this is when we try and build consistent messaging. And you get together and you realize that you all think the same things. So why not just do the same things? And so yes, we do coordinate. I don't think that our stations are coordinating colors, but in terms of our train of thought and our thinking, we are coordinating. And everyone has their gimmicks, of course. But other than that, we work very well together. And it helps that the National Weather Service is here and NOAA headquarters is here, because we also get to meet Louis every once in a while, and just there's a lot of camaraderie in meteorology in DC, which is nothing but good, I think.
So you'll know you're in trouble, Angela, when Dr. Usolini shows up at your door.
Yeah, I mean that's true.
So Angela, my personal story about this is because I was on vacation last week and I saw this email come across from Robin. I understood his concern because he is a weather person. May just be a weather enthusiast. I don't know if he's in the business, but he really, as James said, had underwear flapping up and down his leg about this color change. Mm. But I had just gone through this. Through this experiment in the spring where our hotel team, said, look, we can't understand all these different, advisories, watches, warnings, and risks and everything that come down the pike. Would you do a webinar for us of how we can understand it? And as I tried to explain the SPC risks through watches, warnings, and advisories, I realized that we were really letting them down. And so the dashboard that we came up with, that's fed from the VTEX and interprets the risks and shows all of our hotels in one board, came down to literally yellow for advisory, orange for watches, and red for warnings, because they all said just tell us when we need to do something. And so that's how we colored everything in that process. And it taught me a lesson listening to them. That we don't care whether it's an advisory or a warning. Just tell me what to do. Mm-hmm. And so that's how that came up for me. So I think I was one of the first ones in the WeatherBrains group that said, really I come up on the other side of this argument a little bit. And so, I think we do have to make sure that we're communicating.
Yeah, so, absolutely. Yeah.
Anyway, now you've attacked some things in your, and I want to get to Morgan, has an important. I'm sorry, I got to get Aubrey in here. Aubrey, we're so glad to see you. Yes.
Yeah, I had a little bit of a different background. I came into weather very late, so I feel like I still have a bit of a perspective from a viewer because I didn't grow up learning all about weather and knowing these things, and I really learned as I went to school for this. So my comment on this is, as we're explaining, and I think you said it right, Bill, sometimes when we're explaining the difference between a watch and a warning, why during any sort of big weather event do we have to spend time explaining the difference between a watch and a warning? I feel like we are wasting our time explaining too many things, and we need to tap into people's basic knowledge, a basic understanding, and common sense, to where these warnings and watches and advisories and alerts and color codings and risk and everything is more basic and understanding, instead of having to explain it every single big event. So that's my
And
comment.
Aubrey, while we've got you here, before Angela started talking about women in meteorology, especially women that are on television, and I know this is a subject that's near and dear to your heart. So you two guys comment for a minute about the difficulties that you face as a woman and how those are different, than the same problems that men face. And I'll start with you, Aubrey.
Oh,
Yeah,
sorry.
she's got it worse than I do.
I'm very, very lucky, and I think Angela and I are both part of the female meteorologist group, and I thank my lucky stars every day for this area. I do not, if the negativity is out there, I don't see very much of it, and I am more than ecstatic and not sure I could continue with this career if I saw more of the negative comments, the negative emails, the hate, the trolls that some of these women get for just being themselves, and some of the nasty things. So people criticize your hair, your jewelry, your dress. If you gain a pound, anything, your personal life, people they come up to you, and so I think those are definitely some big challenges. And sometimes the most hurtful things come from other women. So I think that's one of the biggest challenges. And being looked at as a scientist, someone who knows this information and is not just some pretty face on TV getting paid to show up 10 minutes before show just to be a pretty face on TV. I think those are some of the hardest things to overcome, that we actually are skilled in this. This is our education. This is our field, and it just happens to be in a public eye where, people welcome you into their homes every day. So I think those are the two biggest drawbacks that I see.
So Angela, add to what Aubrey said.
Yeah, I also think that, our area over here in the Mid-Atlantic tends to be a little bit better. I I don't get very much, spit and fire from the local stories. But when I write something that's national and that goes national, it's never commenting on my looks, because I'm behind a keyboard, which is where I like to be. But it's about my just my intelligence level. I'm just a dumb girl, So there's a lot of that out there. But yeah, so I've written on things a few times and put on a national stage, hopefully, these struggles that I think not only women in TV weather, but women in TV news in general face, because I think for a long time, for decades, they've just been kind of taking it on the chin and dealing with it. But we have to stop. We have to stop doing this. So whenever there's something interesting out there, and if there's ever anything I can say about it, I will do that, because it's definitely it's just near and dear to my heart. It's very important to me. Women in this field are still pretty uncommon from what I've seen. I think that there are a lot of women out there in our field. I don't think they get the recognition that they need, and so something I keep pushing for.
So Angela, I know that you are, you're not shy to tackle issues outside of weather on your personal Twitter account. Talk about that.
No,
Have
that's
you gotten
true.
some ugly kickbacks in that regard?
That's true. I am particularly passionate right now, and since it started about the Black Lives Matter movement, and so I do a lot of retweeting and a lot of thoughtful messaging on that on my Twitter account, as a lot of people do at the Post, because the right thing is the right thing, and it's very interesting, the feedback, because you have a few thousand followers on Twitter, and they're following you for weather, but you also have an audience that you can reach maybe on other important things, and so you you start to dabble in these areas, and you start losing Twitter followers. But that's a sad reality of things right now, and I'm sure you guys understand too that things are just not great right now, and weather during this time is such a trivial thing that it's very difficult to focus on weather during the day when snipers are taking out, police officers in Dallas, and when innocent lives are being taken. And so, especially working in such a big national newsroom, it's sometimes it's a struggle to keep my focus and to keep perspective, because there's nothing going on in the weather. I'm writing about rainbows, and people are dying. So this is one of the challenges in working at the Post, I think, is just having to do your job when, quite frankly, what's hitting the fan every other day. It's a challenge.
They don't let us do any political stuff on our social media accounts. I'm surprised they let you guys do that. That's a big no-no in my business.
It's a lot of retweeting, but Black Lives Matter isn't political. We're not talking about who we're going to vote for. We're not talking about Democrats or Republicans. This is human interest. So, and it's a lot of sharing of information. It's a lot of getting information out there. Powerful stories and stories that I have found worth reading, I will share that with my followers.
Let me ask you this, Angela, real fast. Something I wanted to follow up on what we were talking about a little bit ago. Since Capital Weather Game really is as much of a national product now, of course, the Washington Post is a national paper of record. Now that you folks are so well established, I'm sure you're getting submissions from all over the place. Here's this incredible picture I took last night. How tough has it gotten to verify a lot of that stuff? Because even when I came into this weather department 5 years ago, generally if I got a snow picture from Monroe, Washington, I figured it would be a snow picture from Monroe, Washington, not somebody's snowman in Denver.
Yeah.
How are you guys handling that?
We actually have a really wonderful core following, and we don't have that problem as much as you might think. We are national, but the national audience is not the audience that's submitting to us. If we are sharing national photos, it's because we're going out, finding them, and vetting them. Our local audience is wonderful. We have had, knock on wood, we've had almost no problems with this in the 2 years that I've been here. And they just keep sending. They just keep sending great reports, great photos. And every once in a while you'll spot something that's a little bit off, and you'll basically disregard it. But so far, like I said, knock on wood, we haven't had that problem, but I know that people struggle with this all the time. And I know the Weather Channel in particular struggles with it. They are constantly getting submissions from people, and I just feel that it's because they're soliciting photos from that national audience, and they don't have a really wonderful core user group like we do, and so they're just kind of getting everything. They're getting all the noise. but we're very fortunate. We haven't had that issue.
All right, guys, let's do a quick break here. We're getting late in the show here. We're going to take a quick break for WeatherBrains 101. Got the Astronomy Report with Tony Rice featuring Morgan Palmer, the big pipes, the introduction, the voice. And Morgan's got the best pipes in this business. But anyway, we'll be right back with the weather roundup. We'll have the email inbox. And wait, Aubrey, hang on. You know what? We better do the email now, right?
Yes, that would be wonderful.
Because I know you've got to hit the TV side, so let's do this. I have a funny feeling we just might have a few emails to read this week.
Letters. We get letters. We get stacks of letters.
Two things real quick before we get to the email. The man in the pink shorts that you see behind me, this is my work husband. This is meteorologist Greg Master, who is, how long have you been here, Greg? 8 months? Something like that. He came in from Fargo.
This guy is confident in his manhood wearing that on television, I'm saying.
Yes, he is. He is working quickly on a segment, stealing my computer while I'm on the other one. So, and the second thing, back to the female meteorologist, just real quick. When I came into this evening position and I was promoted, I was taking over for a long-term male meteorologist who had been in the area for 15 years, and I wasn't sure the flack that I would get. And I was very thankful. I never got one hurtful or hateful email. So, and I know that's not always the case with some women taking over for some long-term mess across the country. So, again, I'm very thankful for this area and how they have welcomed me. So, back to the email. Mark sent in an email about suggestion about when we were talking about having different guests in, such as Morgan, gracing us with his presence to talk about the different kinds of weather common to their region, but maybe not found so much. I know most of you guys are in the southeast in Alabama, so having Morgan's insight on how it's been a struggle to hit 70 or above this week has been rather pleasant to listen to.
Cue the tiny violin.
Yeah. But definitely a good idea to have a little bit more of a realm across the country and to hear some of those different local spots, of course. Always good. And we've talked about Rob, the whole topic for tonight with the color coding with his email and his suggestion. Kristen Kerchain, I think I said that right, a meteorologist in Fort Myers, Florida, sent us a great article from the Cliff Mass blog spot about numerical weather prediction, and she would love to see that as a topic on WeatherBrains and how numerical weather prediction really needs to be kind of the plan of the future. So good article there. And maybe a future topic. We also got an email. Is it Ellie? I believe in Canada. We had him on a while ago. Calvin Hutt works with journalists and heads up a PR firm focusing on developing and monetizing a digital brand. Ellie says it's not strictly weather related in any way, but kind of a topic of monetizing off of digital media has obviously come up with Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and all that, so that could be a future topic. So we appreciate those emails. You keep sending those in email at weatherbrains.com. We'd like to hear your show suggestions, maybe your guest suggestions. Don't forget to include some contact information, an email, a phone number, or a Twitter. That would be great. And you can also follow us on Facebook and Twitter. But we love getting your comments and what you guys think about the show and maybe some great topics and good guest suggestions. So thank you for sending those in and keep it up.
We interrupt this program for a CBS Radio Net Alert Bulletin.
From the newsroom inside worldwide headquarters of WeatherBrains International, this is a heat emergency update.
Okay, stand by live, stand by graphics, stand by effects, stand by cameras 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6. Stand by HD Superjet Copter 17, microwave truck and satellite feeds locked. Cancel mix minus to talent. We're live in 3, 2, and cue announce.
We go live now to our reporter who is live on the scene.
It's hot. Stay inside, have a drink of water, and get over it.
WeatherBrains 101 with Professor Peters.
The GOES 3 satellite made history on June 16, 1978, when it became NOAA's third geostationary operational environmental satellite placed in orbit. In 2016, after 38 years and a second life as a communications satellite, GOES 3, one of the oldest continuously operating satellites in orbit, made history again when it reached the end of its life and completed the decommissioning process on June 29th. Launched into space aboard a Delta 2914 carrier rocket, the satellite used a visible infrared spin scan radiometer to provide day and night observations of cloud and surface temperatures, cloud heights, and wind fields. The satellite provided forecasters with some of their first near real-time looks at atmospheric conditions from a fixed location. Serving in the GOES West position until the late 80s, GOES 3 monitored and measured Earth's weather systems for a decade. The system's most famous imagery was captured on May 18, 1980, when the Mount St. Helens volcano erupted, spewing ash over Washington state. NOAA relied on data and imagery from GOES 3 to track the dispersion of ash clouds from the eruption to warn pilots flying in the area of the potentially deadly hazard. In 1988, 10 years after launch, GOES 3 lost its operational imaging capabilities. Its long career as an operational weather satellite had come to an honorable end. But GOES 3 did not go gently into that good night. In fact, its storied career had just begun. Although its imager could no longer capture useful weather observations, GOES 3 could still communicate with ground systems on Earth. The satellite's ability to send and receive data from geostationary orbit grabbed the attention of the Pan-Pacific Education and Communications Experiments by Satellite Program, or PEACE-SAT. Working with PEACE-SAT, GOES 3 served as a communications lifeline to the Pacific from 1988 through the early 1990s. In 1995, the satellite again changed hands and provided a new critical communication link for the South Pole. This time, it was used by the National Science Foundation for direct digital communications between the continental United States and the South Pole Station. With an operational life spanning 5 different decades and 6 different U.S. presidents, GOES 3 has seen it all. After a long career, GOES 3's curtain call began on June 15, 2016. Following 14 days and 20 orbital adjustment maneuvers, the satellite was carefully placed into a graveyard orbit, safely removed from orbiting geostationary satellites. The final decommissioning phase, ending on June 29, 2016, cementing GOES 3 in the history books as one of the oldest continuously operating spacecraft in history, with a service life of 38 years and 13 days. If you have a question about the weather, drop an email to question@weatherbrains.com.
Looking beyond the atmosphere, here's Tony Rice with your Astronomy Outlook.
The National Park Service sign in a promontory Utah rocket garden proudly proclaims the location to be at the frontiers of transportation. That's pretty accurate because just 9 miles to the east, the rails of the Union and Central Pacific Railroads were joined in 1869, creating the first transcontinental railroad. On this day in 1977, Thiokol conducted a 2-minute-long test firing at this promontory propulsion system facility. They were testing their solid rocket motor. A few weeks ago, the new owner, Orbital ATK, conducted the 5th and final test firing of the Space Launch System solid rocket booster here. It's the biggest solid rocket motor to date. If you ever find yourself in northern Utah, stop by this rocket garden. It's just outside the facility. You find examples of various missiles and rocket motors manufactured for the U.S. Air Force and Navy and NASA, dating back to the 1950s. Most prominent are the Minuteman and Trident C-4 missiles standing upright in the middle. You also notice the full-size mock-up of the SRBs, those huge white pencil-looking things that were alongside the shuttle and gave it the kick it needed to get into orbit. Today, that SLS booster is based on those shuttle SRBs, but it adds a 5th motor segment to the design. 17 stories tall and burning approximately 6 tons of powdered aluminum fuel every second, each SLS booster generates 3.2 million pounds of thrust. That's about double what SpaceX's Falcon 9 rocket produces. Different rockets for different jobs. There are plenty of SRB components from the shuttle era that are available for reuse. Of the 270 SRBs launched over the shuttle program, all but 4 were recovered. Missing motors include those from STS-4 and STS-51L, the Challenger incident. Shortly after the loss of Challenger, the range safety officer sent destruct commands to the SRBs. This was to prevent them from straying into populated areas. Boosters from the STS-4 mission hit the ocean very hard and sank. This happened when the sequence which detaches the parachute lines from the boosters for the safety of the recovery divers fired during descent instead of impact with the water. Loss of the Challenger and her crew are never far from the minds of ATK engineers today. Last month's test was conducted at the low end of the operating temperature range, 41 degrees Fahrenheit. This required a month's worth of pumping 25-degree air all around the motor in its roll-off hangar facility in the Utah desert. The next test of SLS is scheduled for 2018. Exploration Mission 1 will be the first ever SLS launch and will send an uncrewed Orion spacecraft on a 3-week flight to orbit the moon and return. That's your Astronomy Outlook. Follow me at RTP Hokie for more spacey stuff like this.
When the weather ball is red, warmer weather is ahead. When the weather ball is white, colder weather is in sight. When the weather ball is green, no change in the weather is foreseen. When colors blink by night or day, precipitation's on the way.
Before we do the weather roundup, now we came on the show and Bill was eating this thing, and I thought he was eating a pickle. And Bill, it wasn't a pickle. Would you please explain what that green thing was? Uh-oh, Bill, do we lose you here? Hello, Bill.
I don't hear him. Yeah.
Hello. Well, so maybe somebody else can explain. But Brian, what was this guy eating here? What is this thing called?
You got me. This is the first time I've ever seen it or heard of it.
Uh-oh.
Seriously, guys?
Seriously? And now Brian's audio shot.
We've tried turning it off and on again. Off and on again. Off and on again.
I have no idea. Never had one.
So Bill's back. Bill, what is this thing? Oh, boy, Bill's long gone. Bill's mad. He hung up on us. So Angela, do you know what this thing is?
Oh, yeah. Edamame. Soybeans.
Mm-hmm.
Steam them, put a little salt on them, maybe dip them in a little soy sauce. Delicious. I'm with you, Bill. I'm with you on the edamame. I can't hear you, but yeah. Woo!
I like them. I'm not someone who just would. They're not my go-to thing, but they're okay. It's fiber, I guess. It's good for you. It's roughage, as Mom used to say.
They're kind of like one of those snacks, like a chip. You can't have just one. It's kind of just you just keep eating them.
And it's a lot better than potato chips.
Absolutely.
For you.
All right. Well, what we got to do here, we've got to do the weather roundup, and let's see. Bill is back. Bill, try your audio one more time. Oh boy, he's gone. And I've got to go do television because I'm the lead because I think it's going to be hot tomorrow. Brian, are you there?
I'm here.
All right. Yeah, I'm getting this strange audio thing, so I'll tell you what, guys, hang on just a second. I'm going to do something a little odd here. We're going to make an edit, so for those watching live, our folks that listen will not be hearing this. All right, now talk to me, Brian. Say something.
This is a test. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5.
Good. All right, so we're going to make an edit here, JP. So, Bill, are you there? Man, Bill is long gone. All right, so Brian, you got to run the show, man. So,
okay.
You do weather roundup and picks the week and wrap it up. So, JP, make the edit right here, and Brian's going to pick up with the weather roundup.
So Morgan, you said it's cool out there. What have you got coming up in your neck of the woods in the northwest U.S.?
Well, we hit 80 degrees today for the first time in the month of July, and just 80 degrees. And we'll have plenty more days like this. Our statistically hottest time of the year, the last week in July and the first week in August. So people make plans to come in here, people who get married, this is the time period of the year for that, because on average, we have our fewest number of rainy days. In fact, there's one day in late July and one day in the first week of August where over the history weather that goes back to 1893 at the old Federal Building before SeaTac Airport, On 2 of those days, it's only rained 9 times in 123 years.
Ooh.
So that's a pretty good percentage if you're looking to plan something
Those
outdoors.
are good odds for planning a wedding.
Yeah. So people have to book way ahead of time.
I went to Seattle for a cruise in 2012. You remember what happened in August of 2012? You all hit 95 for the.
It was 95. Yeah.
Yeah.
A couple of years.
Record high.
Yeah. And we had a lot of that last year. It was our hottest summer on record, and we haven't had a cooler than normal month since back in November. We were running a little cooler than normal, and everybody was saying, "Where's summer?" And I kept telling people last week, "Look, we're pretty much on average." And then now we're up slightly above average and trickling up there.
And how about the Shenandoah Valley there, Aubrey?
It's been a little above average, but we're going to. The last couple of summers have not been terrible, really, since 2012. We've really struggled to get above 93, and we're expecting that to break this weekend. But several days in a row with 90. It's been a couple years since we've seen kind of a heat wave with this stretch. It's been pretty hot and a little bit more humid this year. We've gotten so much rain. Since our records go back 1880, it's the 4th wettest May, June, July so far. So we've had our fair share of rain and storms. So.
And other than the stormy night in D.C. the other night, Angela, what about the forecast for D.C.?
Well, we could potentially be looking at our first triple-digit heat on Friday, Saturday, and Sunday, just in case one day isn't good enough for you. Yep. And the humidity along with it is it's just been killer this year. It just seems like. But in terms of heat, 90-degree days. We've had 17 so far, and that's right at the average. So, it's not been actually a bad summer. It always feels like it's been a bad summer,
Yes. Well, we've been getting those daily thunderstorms for about the last week, it seems like, over much of the southeastern U.S. And I know at my house, I've had a number of, I've probably had a ton of thunder and very little rain. But it does cool temperatures off as a thunderstorm comes by. Usually get a nice drop of anywhere from 5 to 10 degrees, depending on.
We had 20-degree drops the other day, so it really helps. I wish it would bring the humidity down. It never does that, but at least it cools it off a little bit.
Well, down here in the south we say, well, it's going to cool it off, but it cools it off 5 degrees and raises the humidity 20.
You're right.
So, well. Are you any better off? I don't know. I have no idea. All right. Well, we have this is the time where we go around the horn and talk about picks of the week. Angela, you will be last. And I would, if you do you have the little note thing on the side of your?
I could probably find it. Yep.
It's the little blue thing at the top.
Okay.
Little blue
Got it.
icon. Yeah. If you would put your post over there, I would appreciate it, because then that way I can put it in the show notes a little bit easier. So let's see. We just lost Aubrey. Well, her pick of the week was, hold on a minute, I'll go to it. She picked some pictures, the satellite view of dust off of Chile. I don't know if the rest of you guys saw this, but that's a pretty fascinating view. We're having a lot of dust in the South Atlantic as well that is helping to keep the tropical Atlantic free of any kinds of storms, and much in the way of clouds either, too. Morgan, how about you?
Yeah, I have a website that probably a lot of folks do use, timeanddate.com, and that website, yes, everyone knows when this, or you can see it on your phone, when the sun's going to rise, when it's going to set, but of special interest up here in the Northwest, given our far northerly latitude, is the change in how much daylight we have from one day to another. And once we get to the start of fall, we lose about 3.5 minutes a day. And you really notice it from day to day, because beginning of summer, we're right at 16 hours of daylight in Seattle. First day of winter, we're at 8 hours and 25 minutes.
Whoa.
It's a big swing.
That's a big swing.
So it's light up here until well after 10 o'clock this time of year.
Wow, that is a big swing. Yeah, ours is not nearly that big. That's okay with me. Okay, James had a pick too, and he picked a YouTube video on the AMS panel on outdoor events, primarily lightning and severe weather warnings for outdoor events. and so we'll have that up there on it. And since he's gone, I don't get the foghorn, but I don't have a pick this week, so that's okay. Angela, I've stalled as far as I can. I know you have a pick.
I do have a pick. Have you all seen the microburst in Phoenix from earlier this week?
I actually, you'll be amazed. I just saw this about an hour ago.
Oh, it's so good. Oh, it's so good, and it's still running strong on the Washington Post website. So these guys, the chopper guys out in Phoenix, are flying around during thunderstorms, and that whatever, guys. But they're taking these amazing photos, and this beautiful microburst just comes crashing out of the sky, the perfect time. It looks like a nuclear bomb is going off over Phoenix. It's just this incredible photo. I don't think that the wind damage was quite that bad because I didn't hear very much out of that, but the photo is amazing. So
it really is. And the first photo you see in that link that I'll put up on the website is just phenomenal. But when you scroll down just a little bit further, to be able to see the entire thunderstorm along with the microburst that's going on is just phenomenal. Now, do you know were these guys traffic guys or just up flying around in a helicopter?
They are independent contractors, and I believe that they're doing a lot of different things. These guys are doing things like they're flying celebrities in and out. They're doing a little bit of news stuff. They're doing a little bit of reporting, and they're also starting up a reality television show. So they got a lot going on. Yeah.
They got a lot going on.
They just
well, if they ever need a passenger,
right?
If they ever need a passenger, always love going in helicopters. They're fascinating, flying in helicopters, and what you get to see.
Yeah.
Well, all right. Thank you all, Angela. We really appreciate you being on the show.
Oh, thanks for having me.
Yeah.
May have you back again another time, if you can stand us one more time.
Oh, I think I can.
Well, and by the way, part of our show notes includes websites from this week, and I will put the Capital Weather Gang will be one of those websites that will, the main page for your Capital Weather Gang group.
Perfect.
So that'd be wonderful. All right. Anybody else have anything else they want to say? Morgan?
No, that's it. I enjoyed the evening, and great to talk to you, Angela. Love your stuff.
Thanks.
And we appreciate it. I am not James Spann. This is WeatherBrains number 548. I can't believe we've done anything 548 times. Wow. But we certainly appreciate you all watching and those who listen as well. Again, I am not James Spann. We will be having WeatherBrains 549 recorded at its regular time next Monday, and I do not know all the guests, and since Bill is not on, I don't have my guest booking officer to back me up here and tell me who it is. So just tune in. It'll be somebody as fascinating as Angela, I'm sure, because we're always coming up with guests. And then on Tuesday night, we will do a special because of the vacations with our host, James Spann, being on vacation the following week. So we will be doing 2 back-to-back shows. With that, thank you all for tuning in to WeatherBrains, and I hope that you have a great day, week, month ahead, whatever, and Godspeed. Thank you, guys.
All right, thanks, Brian.
By the way, Angela, I don't mean anything sexist. Guys is a generic to everybody.
Oh no, I enjoy guys too. I mean, I'm starting to feel like I need to switch. but I'm of the same mindset as you. So maybe we just need to work on it a little bit. I don't know.
Well, we appreciate you being on.
Thank you. I appreciate being here.
Tell Jason he has nothing on you because he's been on before. So now he has nothing on you because you've been on too.
Perfect. I love it when my boss has nothing on me.
I thought I'd give you a little ammunition there.
Yeah.
All right, you have a good evening.
You too. Bye, guys.
Thanks, Morgan.
Bye. Thanks,
Bye.
Brian.
Yep.
Hey, there's still people here. Wow. So the political coverage is running late. So it turns out I could have stayed, but who knew? We have to stay on there. But anyway, thank you guys. We'll be on Song of the Night on Twitter in just a little bit if you want to follow along there. Thank you guys for watching. Have a great week. We'll see you Monday night. Bye-bye.